Welcome to day 109. We are finishing the first book of Samuel in a couple chapters in the second book of Samuel and also in Chronicles. A few things here, not just a few things. We talked about when the government oppresses or the king oppresses, people will start to respond and fight back or gather in groups, searching for wherever freedom they can find. And David was in the correct spot at that time. Just like God made Joseph was sold into slavery into Egypt, God made a way for the people of Israel to escape the famine, go into Egypt, was saved by Joseph. Just like that, God used Saul to be jealous of David, and David fled for his life, and God used that for a place where soldiers could go and group with him to remove themselves from this oppressed king of Saul, what he was doing. We get to the reasons of why Saul died here in this reading. So David gets more and more people. So we are in 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 22. It says, "Day after day, more men joined David until he had a great army, like the army of God." So once the floodgates are open, you get this little drip, and all of a sudden it becomes a stream, and then it just gushes open. People just started to flood it to David, the military did, and to rally behind him. Okay, so, and then Saul is killed on the battlefield, and we have the number 7 being talked about. So 1 Samuel 31, verse 13 says, "Then they took their bones." This is Jonathan and the other warriors that were taken, and King Saul, their heads and bodies. So they came and they grabbed them and took them away from the enemy. They said, "Then they took their bones and buried them beneath the tamarisk tree at Jabesh, and they fasted for 7 days." Again, not that 7 is some magical number, but come on, if you've been keeping track of your 7s, there are a ton of 7s, far more than in anything else. And there are some other numbers that are used, 12, but 7 is definitely. Look at this. This much of the Bible, and we have I have a page and a half of 7s listed. So an important part of that. And they fasted for 7 days. All right. Now the reason for Saul's death. If we go to 1 Chronicles chapter 10. And verse 13, it says, "So Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord." Okay, so here we have the reason. He was unfaithful to the Lord. And, people who read their Bible get this. God is not here just to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry you didn't follow my advice." No, He's God. He's perfect in every way. He is merciful, graceful, and he follows through on what he says. He cannot lie, and he cannot stand sin and disobedience and rebelliousness. And this is what's happened to Saul. He died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He failed to obey the Lord's command, and he even consulted a medium. He was unfaithful, he disobeyed, and he consulted a medium. That's just 3 things. Instead of asking for the Lord's guidance. So the Lord killed him and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse. So not God, used Joseph, gathered the people out into Egypt, and to give 400 years time for the sins of the Canaanites to run its course, and he killed part of them, and then he sent the Israelites to kill some of them, and they disobeyed. What do you think's going to happen? And they disobeyed him, and he killed part of his own people. The story after story. So, if you got a story list, man, those are some great stories to make sure you go back through and talk about. And now we get to the last thing we mentioned one other time, a book. So on your list of books, we have the book of Jashar, 2 Samuel, excuse me, 2 Samuel 1:18. And it says, David, 17, David 17 and 18. Then David composed a funeral song for Saul and Jonathan, and he commanded that it be taught to the people of Judah. It is known as the Song of the Bow, and it is recorded in the book of Jashar. And the book of Jashar is also mentioned in Joshua 10:13, so you could add that to your references about the book of Jashar. Amazing. I didn't know there were that many books listed in the Bible. I've read it a few times. And it still jumps out at me. So I'm hoping you get those sort of things. We are kind of in this lull stage of reading stories, getting into prophetic stuff. So we're talking about these stories, and then we're going to get into some things. Now, it's going to take a little bit, but these stories that we're going to be reading about are very, very important. So that is day 109. I'll see you tomorrow.